we are going to be extending it by 2 weeks. So the new date is the 16th of March, and that's when leagues will finish.
So, I've been thinking about this for a long time, probably more than I should have. Was League 3 successful or not? On one hand, we have the top 5% of player base still grinding day in day out to get that Dragon Trophy. On the other hand, many content creators and players have already given up even though we are only halfway through the leagues.
The next question is, the reason you gave for League 3 being delayed was to give players who were competing in Group Ironman more time to enjoy the game mode. However, for the past 4 weeks, players have not had too much content to be playing in the meantime. Do you think, essentially, delaying League 3 was the correct decision? And can you explain more about your decision for the delay?
Yeah, so we still believe it was the correct decision. Like with Group Ironman, we saw like essentially a massive influx of players kind of into the game, into that mode, and we realized that it wouldn't necessarily be fair to kind of pull them out of that mode so soon after going into it by releasing League so close to it. We recognize in particular, obviously, the fact that we announced it so close to the release wasn't great, and obviously we'd like to avoid having to do that again, and we recognize that must have been like really frustrating for a lot of people who are greatly looking forward to leagues.
So, as you might know, Jagex decided to extend League 3 for another 2 weeks. This isn't that big of a deal unless you are either in two categories, going for the Dragon Trophy or you have a life and still want to enjoy leagues. At the day of recording this, there is almost a month until the end of leagues, and current time is 9 PM in Central Europe, which means it's the highest possible player count for Oldschool RuneScape per this graphic. And there are about 6,000 players online playing League 3 out of almost 100,000 playing Oldschool RuneScape. You can check this yourself, I'll put the link in the description. But what does that tell us? Well, after 4 weeks of League 3 being released, there are basically left only those who wanted the 2-week extension and those who are grinding for Dragon tier. We can assume that out of those 6,000 players, about 3,000 of those are either Dragon or Rune tier and the rest are casual players. So it's about 50-50. And I would say that paints a pretty good picture of how people felt about extending the league, 50-50. Let's start with the players who wants the Dragon Trophy. The expected number you should go for aiming to get the Dragon Trophy is around 55 to 60,000 points. Trailblazer had 56,000 points for Dragon tier, and Jagex mentioned how they are aiming for about the same numbers. Just to be safe, we are going with 60k for now. Since we are halfway through the League 3, if you want the Dragon tier, you should by now have at least over 35,000 points. Yes, the number is currently already about 39 or 40 for Dragon tier, but last 2 leagues have shown that people get burned out very easily few weeks before it ends, and the overall number goes down. So 50% of leagues is done, and you should have 50% of the total point value for Dragon Trophy. Personally, I have 35k points right now, and I have played on average about 7 hours of league every single day since release. I think I missed maybe 2 or 3 days in total. Now, I'm not the most efficient player, I'm gonna say that right away, but I would definitely say I am average, and that's what we are aiming for here. Since 60k is what you should aim for, you should be expected to get about 1000 points per day for 8 weeks straight. Now, if you played leagues, you know that the longer the game goes on, the harder and harder it is to get those 1000 points every day. And if you find out that Jagex added in 2 more weeks for a so-called grinder or someone who wants the Dragon Trophy, that would mean an extra 14k points they have to find through tasks, and that would be about 100 more hours, give or take. So, for someone who wants the Dragon Trophy, this extension was an absolute disaster. I'm just gonna say it, okay? For me, not so much, because I'm actually really enjoying League so far, and I don't mind this at all. But think about this way. You're going for that achievement, that top 1%, that prestigious awards, Dragon Trophy, and then Jagex says suddenly without almost any notice that now you have to play 100 more hours in the game to get that achievement. Honestly, that might kinda suck. But knowing the grinder mindset, I don't think this changes anything for me or for any other top 1% player. Because it does feel like the relics and the fragments in this league favor the top 1% rather than the rest of the leagues. Because they're not as powerful as they were in the last 2 leagues. Take Trailblazer for instance. At the start of Trailblazer, you already had a clear choice in which direction you want to go. And you start with a very powerful relic. We didn't get it this time, but that's for another day. To get back to my previous point, I really like Mod Flippy's take on why they did it 6 weeks at the start instead of 8, where he said that we looked through previous leagues and realized that at the end of every league was exactly the same. There were only few players left who were chasing the Dragon Trophy and the hype had essentially died out. So we decided to make this league shorter, which should help us retain the player base and make it more competitive. Make it more competitive. That is what league is about, right? We compete with each other to find out who is more lucky, who basically has more time on their hands, and who has the best game knowledge. That's what MMOs are all about, but that doesn't mean that everyone can't enjoy the game, no matter how long it is. If Jagex releases something new and exciting, it should be meant for everyone. That's my point of view. I was thinking about making a video on how this game is gonna be split. It's gonna be split between people who have the time to grind and play and people who have a life, who have school, who have work, who have friends, family, hobbies and everything else, right? Now, I'm not saying one way or the other is the right way to live. Whatever makes you happy is the right choice, but how do you make a game that fits both lifestyles? Should Jagex make future leagues so that the points are easier to obtain? Maybe that's an option. Should Jagex make future leagues so that the competitive aspect of leagues only goes on for a month and then you have an extra month to earn points for the cosmetic rewards? That way both parties are happy. The grinders who have a month to grind and the casual players who have another month to get their cosmetic rewards. Overall, the Dragon and Rune tier only make up for about 10% of the player base. So should Jagex cater to the top 10% who put in the most hours, the most dedicated players on the server and players who enjoy leagues the most? Or should they cater to the bottom 90% who accumulate the same amount of total hours as the grinders but bring in more value to the company and the game in longer term? I would love to know, what do you think? What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments, by the way. Do you think Jagex should cater to the top 10% or the bottom 90%? I would love to know what you think about this and have an actual discussion on this. If I wasn't a lazy bum, had an actual 5-day job and had family friends, it would be very difficult to play RuneScape, honestly. You can maybe push in few hours during the day on your phone if you're lucky. You can spend few hours at nighttime if you manage to somehow have the time. But knowing that the ending date comes closer and closer and you still haven't managed to do the things you want to do in leagues, then I would definitely be kinda bummed out that I can't enjoy all this new content that everyone else sees. Because, you know, I have a life. I do think this game is meant for everyone. Let's be real, like, we are all grown up by now and not the kids we used to be 15 years ago when we all started. Times have changed. That doesn't mean that we all still can't enjoy the game even though we have different goals. That's what RuneScape is about, right? That's what it's always been about. You can do whatever you want whenever you want, and I think that's the reason this game is still going strong after 20 years. There is a caveat to leaks, I think has to be said. Hopefully I won't get a lot of hate for this. But what I do find most interesting is that the Reddit thread started popping up when we were only like 2 or 3 days into leagues. Like after 48 hours, a small vocal player base had already decided that they are not gonna have enough time to play. I'll let you decide if that's right or wrong, but I will say that now we have about 1 old school RuneScape player out of 12 in total still playing leagues, even though we are only 4 weeks into leagues. One of the things I really disliked was how Jagex basically bent backwards for a few Reddit posts and immediately made the changes without even looking into why Leagues was initially 6 weeks in the first place. The player base knew for an entire month before release that Leagues is gonna be 6 weeks, but only after a few days of release people started complaining about how short the league is. Now, with around 10 to 20,000 players still going only after 4 weeks, I think the main takeaway is that I truly wish that Jagex put more effort into leagues overall. We got almost 200,000 players log in to try out leagues, and it's become clear that it is the best game mode Oldschool RuneScape has ever had. That being said, seeing people yell at Jagex modes personally on Twitter about not getting what they want, even though it was obviously a business decision to initially delay leagues and then extend it after release, is like absolutely not okay. To end the video, I'm gonna say two things, a negative and then a positive. Overall, I think Jagex handled the league extremely badly this year, delaying it with only like a week notice beforehand and then extending it after release. It just isn't the ideal situation to be in, even if it makes some players happy. It's like Jagex didn't have faith in their own design, which is really worrying in the long term. If you stick to your plan and then start making changes as soon as some people start complaining, that means you don't believe in yourself. I truly hope future leagues will be better planned out, because it's one of the things that brings players back and it has so much more potential to be good. Now I'm gonna end this video on a positive note. The other side is that I think we are very fortunate that Jagex listens to us whenever there is something wrong. I don't think I've ever seen that with any other MMO I've played, but I do wish sometimes Jagex was more strict with their own guidelines and trust themselves more. One of my favorite journalists said that keep your mind open, but not so open that your brain falls out. And I think that applies very well in this situation. So to answer the question, was League successful? Well, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like, there are still thousands of players enjoying this, but it could have been a lot more. Enjoy your leagues, try out everything you can, because coming from someone who has played it basically non-stop, it's actually super fun and enjoyable. Thank you for watching, much love, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
My brothers don't die, we just